Hello, welcome to the East African Perspective. My name is Musanjfu Benjamin. Today I'm going to be doing this alone. My partner could not join us. He's still away south of the continent. I can't leave this out. I have to, we are in this region that is very dynamic, and the news that is happening in the region never stop. So today we are going to talk about the developments in the region that have happened in the past few weeks, and I will start on a positive note from the DRC. Most of the things that have been coming from the Democratic Republic of Congo have been a little bit negative, all really very negative, but something happened at the beginning of August that sort of showed and gave Africa a lot of hope. There was a joint summit of the East African Community and SADC in Nairobi, hosted by His Excellency William Ruto, who is the current chairman of the East African Community. He did host his counterpart in SADC, Emerson Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe, and the African Union Commissioner, Mohamed Yusuf. And they did, at the end of the summit, they agreed to merge what is happening in what the two sides were doing on the peace front, what SADC was trying to do and what ESU is trying to do. They decided to merge their efforts, and they are going to form up one joint secretariat in Addis Ababa, where all these peace efforts are going to be run under the auspice of the African Union. This is a very big positive. Congo has been special to the world, and it is special to this region of East Africa up to this day. We all know the bombs that were used in Nagasaki and Hiroshima were made using uranium from Congo. We have moved away from that, and still Congo still holds some of the most important minerals in the world. 60% of the world's cobalt, which is very important when it comes to our phones, our TVs, the electric cars, and everything that has a battery. And these gadgets that are very important when it comes to the Green Revolution. So everybody is looking at Congo. 60% of the world's cobalt at the moment is in Congo. And everybody is trying to make sure there is peace in Congo, but there are very many factions. Trump did call Rwanda and the DRC to sign a peace deal. Something happened in Qatar. The East African Community was pushing something, and SADC was pushing something. So this joint summit brought these powers together, and they were able to agree going forward to have a joint effort under the African Union. This should have happened long time ago. It shows an intentional Africa security doctrine. Congo is not the only thing we are going to talk about today. We are going to talk about all the countries in the East African Community and the surroundings. Our discussion will we shall look at the geopolitical, geoeconomic, and human development implications. When it comes to geopolitics, is a word we have used at the East African politics, at the East African perspective in the past with Thomas and other guests we have had. We have also talked about the geoeconomics of the region and human development. So geopolitics is basically how countries use power and geography to protect their interests. Basically like a big chessboard where countries try to protect their interests. Then geoeconomics is when countries use their resources, their money, to protect their interests. For example, the countries that have coasts in this region use their coastlines to determine what happens in other countries. The countries that have oil use their oil to determine what happens. And then human development is basically about each individual. It's about health, it's about income, it's about how much money you have in your pockets. It's about what you can afford, how much you can spend. That is human development. What happens in the region is very much dependent on these factors. So a peaceful Congo, as I stated, or a stable Congo would be very, very integral to the Free African Trade Area that took shape in 2021. Because of Congo's mineral muscle, it would galvanize this free trade area. A stable Congo would also mean Africa has, for the first time, a rail line run from the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean. There is Tanzania, but the Congo side, the rail line is not fully operational from the port of Lobito. So a stable Congo would galvanize trade. It would, and when trade happens, that means we have jobs, taxes are collected, and then there is human development, basically poverty eradication. Anyway, I will now move to a little bit northwards, a little bit out of our region in Sudan. But what is happening in Sudan is affecting what is happening in the region. The war between the two generals, one of the Rapid Support Forces and then the general that heads the Sudan Armed Forces, has caused internal displacement of people within Sudan and then also external. Now, the external is what is affecting the region. We are seeing a new wave of refugees into South Sudan. Others, those that have the middle class, are into Uganda and Kenya. They are good for the economy, but at the same point, they bring about stress of resources because they would want to spend on food and on housing. And when they spend on housing, since they have a little bit of money, the housing prices in the region go up. So that is an effect that war is causing. In South Sudan, where most of the people are running to, about 600,000 people have flowed into Sudan, 600,000, a little bit above 500,000. These people are stressing a Sudan that is already fragile, the youngest country in the world, but is not yet, it has not yet kick-started because of some political tensions that have happened and also ethnic violence in that country. Now they have to deal with the refugees. So what is happening in Khartoum is affecting the region, especially when it comes to refugees. It is changing the migration. Already this region has the highest number of refugees in the world. And we all know Uganda is one of the highest hosts of refugees. So that is what is happening in Sudan, and it is immediately affecting South Sudan, which is already fragile. Most people believe that if Sudan organized an election today, tomorrow, their problems would go away, but we have seen elections in the region don't yield anything serious. Then we shall move from Sudan, we shall move to the Horn of Africa. In our second episode, we did talk about the tensions that were boiling between Ethiopia and Eritrea. At the moment, there are reports of Ethiopia ramping up its troops on the borders with Eritrea. These countries did fight a war that led to the formation of Eritrea, and a few years back, the two presidents, the president of Eritrea and the prime minister of Ethiopia, were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for stopping that conflict. But it looks like they're going to fight again if no action is taken up by the African Union, by IGAD, and other parties. If this war happens, it will destabilize the whole Horn of Africa. And if the whole Horn of Africa is destabilized, the Red Sea can't facilitate trade, and the refugee crisis, the guns will flow into the region, and before we know, the whole region will be setting up on fire. Ethiopia is considered as an African giant, a source of resiliency, country that was never colonized. Its flag inspired almost all flags in West Africa. So imagine it going to war. It is already having food security issues, but it wants to go to war with Eritrea. because it wants access to the port, because the formation of Eritrea took away its access to the sea, so it doesn't have a port. That is what is happening in the Horn of Africa. There is Somalia. It is a constant problem. Burundi is in Somalia, Uganda is in Somalia, Kenya is in Somalia, Ethiopia is in Somalia. They're all there under ATMIS, the African Union Transitional Mission for Somalia. They are trying to assist the security forces there, the policing and also the armed force of Somalia to make sure that the country that was failed is stable again. But because of internal struggles like Somaliland trying to secede and also Puntland now, they are threats. Ethiopia has also been even if it has contributed peacekeepers, it has been integral into the destabilization of Somalia because it wants still access to the port. But that is what is happening in the Horn of Africa. If things went south in the Horn of Africa, it would affect trade, and when trade is affected, that means we don't have investors coming into the region. If we don't have investors coming into the region, that affects human development, and that means we don't have jobs, and our economies will be in shambles. That is what is happening over there. Then I will come to Burundi. They have just had an election. There is always a joke around that what happens in Burundi. Who knows what happens in Burundi? Burundi just had elections. They did re-elect their president, Shimua. They also elected a parliament that doesn't have opposition. So that is Burundi. But despite what is happening in Burundi, they are able to contribute peacekeepers in Somalia. Then we move to Tanzania. They're also heading for elections in October. And Tanzania is that part of East Africa that is considered to be the most stable. It has contributed peacekeepers in Congo, and it has contributed to national development for other countries in the past. Tanzania was also very integral to the end of apartheid and colonialism across the continent. But when you go back home, for the first time, Samia Suluhu, their president, she's basically going to run up unopposed because she refused the opposition from standing. And she has ruled the country with that iron fist. She has also faced backlash in the past week for saying small businesses are not open to foreigners in Tanzania. She's basically killing the East African community, which is about free movement of people and goods. She's saying no small businesses are for Tanzanians. Then when we move to when we move to Kenya, their neighbor, Kenya has been having these protests led by the Gen Zs mostly, and they are mostly about the economy. And somehow the government looks like they are failing to control these protests. They are not listening to the youth. And at some point, Kenya looks like it is about to fail, but it is considered as a serious economics powerhouse of a continent and the region as a whole. At the same point, that Kenya that is failing to be stable has its police forces in Haiti, off a continent. This police is in Haiti assisting with peacekeeping of the continent. So you fail to understand where their priorities are. Then when you come to Uganda, Uganda is a promising powerhouse, especially when it comes to the economy. Uganda is promising because there is the East African crude oil pipeline that is being constructed from the Albertine through Tanzania to the coast, something that is going to boost the region's economy, especially the energy economy. There is an oil refinery being built, and oil is going to come up. So Uganda has that promising economy. But that promising economy is being threatened by the absence of a transition in leadership. Most people don't think, or most people are scared there may not be continuity in Uganda because there is this sort of political inertia. The same government for the last 40 years. It changes in its own way, but its face has been the same, and people are asking what will happen the day after tomorrow. So all the things that are happening in East Africa are intertwined in one or another, because this region has is the fast growing when it comes to the economies of Africa. It has a rapidly growing population, which population needs to work, it needs to feed, and at some point it may, if governments don't plan for the population, things can go wrong. The question now is, what is the way forward for the region? What happens? First, there should be tangible peace. The efforts in Congo should continue. Sudan should be stabilized, South Sudan and also Northern Sudan, because what happens there affects the region. The region has to make sure, especially under the African Union, that Ethiopia and Eritrea don't go to war. Ethiopia's quest for seaport should be something that should be brought to the table, and then the solution is found. And then, when all these things are settled, if there is continuity, especially with leadership, and these problems have to be solved by Africans. We don't need external factors. We don't. If we are to go to the UN, we should go when we are ready and we know what we are going to talk about, if they are going to assist. If we solve these problems here, we shall be able to harvest from our economies. We have the Free African Continental Trade Area already active. If it works, then the potential of this region is beyond what we could imagine. We could influence the green energy economy that the world is moving towards. It is reducing its reliance on fossil fuels that are very dangerous to the climate. We should figure out how we can attract capital. We do have the resources, we do have the human resource, but we don't have a capital. So stability will invite capital, and that will enable the region to move. We have been, as a region, very successful in sending our troops out to go and help in peacekeeping, but it's time what we do out in Mozambique, in Haiti, what we are doing in Somalia is also seen in the region when it comes to South Sudan, when it comes to Eastern Congo. And if all these things are realized, then we shall be winning geoeconomically, geopolitically, and then we shall have human development. People will have money to spend, and when people have money to spend, even the loans will be able to take care of them, because governments will be able to collect taxes. So that is basically the East African perspective of late, and all these countries I've talked about. At some point, we shall have guests tackle country by country, and we shall go deeper into each situation and how it affects the country next, and also then the whole African continent. Thank you very much for listening and watching, wherever you watch from. You could look for the East African perspective on your favorite streaming platform. It will come up. I am Musanjifu Benjamin, the host